Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the She Is Unleashed podcast. This is the podcast where we talk about having honest conversations about healing deeply, leading authentically, living intentionally, and becoming the woman God created us to be. This season is titled Aligned and Expanded and has been centered around how high capacity women eventually encounter this concept of aligned and expanded, the reality. We're not talking about the sugar coated stuff, the real stuff. Sometimes God expands us by first disrupting our plans, and we often imagine purpose being a straight line, and we think that our calling would unfold the way we dreamed it, the way we envisioned it. And we assume that if God called us, if He gave us this dream, that every door will open up the way we think it should. But sometimes purpose shows up very differently. And sometimes God closes doors when we are certain these doors will define our future. Sometimes He redirects our path. Sometimes He dismantles our identity, the identity that we've built around this dream, so that He can reveal the identity He established in us long before we had one for ourselves. And so in those moments, we have a choice. Do we cling to our expectations? Do we trust God's process? And today we're going to address these questions. Did I miss God? Why didn't my life unfold the way I expected it to? And what do you do when purpose looks different than the picture you had in your mind? And today I'm honored to welcome Dr. Shamarah Thomas-Hutchins. She is a she's a clinical psychologist. She's a mental health professional and CEO of multiple things. She's going to share a little bit more about what those multiple things are. A mindset strategist and a transformational leader in this entire field. She does a lot of things. And her own personal journey has been one of surrender, healing, forgiveness, and discovering that God's plans often are deeper and different than the ones we expect. Her story reminds us that redirection is not rejection. Sometimes it is preparation. So we're going to go right into this. Welcome, Dr. Shamarah, to the She Is Unleashed podcast.
Thank you so much, Dr. Knight. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. So I appreciate the invite.
You are so welcome. There's so much that I want people to know about you. But I'm going to let you tell us a little bit about who is Dr. Shamarah and what has God been shaping in your life. I know there's been several different restarts and pivots in your journey, both as a clinical psychologist, as a mental health professional, as a CEO, as a boss lady, as so many other things. So just tell us a little bit about who you are beyond the titles, but just you, the person first, because I think a lot of times we lose sight of that part. You're first a person. So tell
Mhm.
us a little bit about the person and then tell us about the multiple assignments that God has given you before we go
Absolutely.
into this conversation.
Absolutely. So I love how you said that, we're first a person, and that's what I live by. Sometimes I don't even like to put the titles on there because at the end of the day, I'm just Shamarah. Comes with many different avenues, but that's who I am. So, first, I'm a child of God. And I remember I used to didn't say that first. And now at this stage of my life, I do say that first. I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I'm a dog lover. And, I love to do a lot of things. One thing about me is that I truly, truly love family. That is my foundation. My grandmother, we always say the matriarch of our family. So she's 92. So that's where I spend most of my time. That's who I am. I love to read, and I never did like to read before. So I know that things are changing in my life
Mm-hmm.
because I like to read. I like to just do nothing. And that used to not be something that I did not like to do. I used to like to always be
Mm-hmm.
on the go. But now in this season of my life, I'm okay with just not doing anything, nothing, watching TV,
Mm-hmm.
sitting there. So that is me in any given general day, with all of the, letters behind my name, a master's in psychology, a bachelor's in biology, PhD in clinical psychology, have all the schooling, but also have experience. So I
Mm-hmm.
believe those both work well in the mental health field. So that's a little bit about who I am. I can go into a whole bunch of details of I join a whole bunch of organizations, leadership, development, everything in that nature.
Mm-hmm. And we'll talk a little bit more about this at the end because I definitely want people to tap into connecting with you and also to finding ways they can support the work that you do in the different avenues. So as we close out today, we'll share a little bit more about the different assignments. She does a lot of work in the community and she has some events coming up. So we want to make sure y'all tap into that as well. So as we go into today's conversation, the title of today is if I can pull up my notes. Now, I say this always, this is all raw and unedited. All right. So, when we look back over your journey, there's something you said when you filled in the form, and I know it's also in your book. She has multiple books too, so we're going to talk about that as well throughout this course. And she's releasing a teen version, so I'm super excited about that too. So we want to talk about that too. But let me rewind. So looking back over your journey, what were some of the earliest beliefs that you carried about what success, purpose, and what your life was? I'm going to put this in quotes, was supposed to look like when you began this journey.
Whew, yeah, so growing up, like I said, I was raised by my grandmother. She raised me, so I knew from that moment on that anything that I had to do or anything that I had to accomplish had to be through me because she could not afford it. And
Mhm.
so I took that on as anything that I needed to do, I needed to excel and succeed. So whether that was playing basketball, which gave me a free scholarship to college, whether that was, I've always wanted to be a doctor. Didn't know that God had something different in what the doctor field would be.
Mhm.
I wanted to be a medical doctor because, the Cosby Show. That's all we saw. So I knew I was going to be a doctor. And when I'm really onto something, I have tunnel vision, and that's what I focus on because I'm going to make every goal that I say I'm going to set out to. And so I was on that road. Biology, get this done, do the MCAT, do all these things. And that's where I thought I was headed to. That was my trajectory.
Mhm.
Um, I knew it would be a family doctor doing chemical dependency because of my mom. I just knew that
Mhm.
that was the one person that I wanted to help, my mom and my dad. If they were good and they stay sober, I was good. Didn't realize how many
Mhm.
people I would help along the way of other people wanting to stay sober. But that was what I wanted to do. I even went to school, medical school for 2 years because I knew I was going to be a doctor. And so
Mhm.
back then, like my whole spirituality was not a great foundation. So
Mhm.
if a door closed, I blame God. Like, why would you close this door and you put me in this door? Like it
Mhm.
didn't make sense to me. And
Yeah.
so I went to medical school for 2 years to have that door closed.
Mm.
I had that door closed and, hindsight's 2020. I could have done something differently, but in the other aspect, something else could have happened as well too.
Yeah.
And so right then and there, I knew that my pivot was happening. Didn't know
Mhm.
what that pivot would be because I was so lost. And I hated psychology in undergrad because I didn't know. I was like, this too much reading. This is too much. I gotta memorize. And
Mhm.
I have a great memory, but it was just boring to me.
Mhm.
And so when that door closed for medical school, I was lost.
Mm.
I was very lost because that's the only thing that I dreamed about. That's the only
Yeah.
thing that I ever told anybody. My
Mhm.
email in middle school and high school was doctor to be at AOL.com.
Wow.
So so at the end of the day, I'm like, what am I about to do? And
Mm.
so that's when the field of psychology came about and behavior modification
Mhm.
and working with developmental disability. And when I started in the psychology field for master's and my PhD, every door opened.
Mm.
I never had a door close until graduation. Like everything, I didn't have a hard time doing anything. Everything
Mhm.
came naturally. People will say, "You are naturally gifted. Like this is your calling." And
Mm.
so in my mind, my calling was being a doctor, a medical doctor. And when I was in medical school, I said, "I hate this." Like this is
Mhm.
I see a patient for 10 minutes and say, "Come back to me if you're feeling bad." Because all I wanted to do was family practice, and that's not how I
Mm.
wanted to live my life.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a lot of freedom. And I'm like, I
Mhm.
am clocking in. And so when I got into the psychology field and that pivot happened, that's when my growth started to happen,
Oh,
because I just went with it and guided it, and just continued to say the one word that I continue to say: if God is what you want me to do, then I'm gonna do it. And then the door opened, and I'm just like,
mhm.
this all I gotta say. But I know it's more to that.
It's the surrender, right?
Right. There's more to that. And so
Mm,
um that's where, that's how the journey went, and we're here today. It had more things. I did therapy throughout this whole thing, but that's when you thought you were doing something and God said, no, I think I need you over here.
yeah.
And so
It's amazing how God gives us glimpses, but he doesn't give us the full picture. And if he did give us the full picture in the beginning, I don't know if we would. We go along dragging and pulling a lot of times, even when he does. And if he would tell us what the journey would look like from conception to the end, man, I don't think I would be like, look, choose somebody else, please. So when um, you were going through these, I know you spoke about just doors closing, and I love what you said, because a lot of people see those closed doors and they feel that feeling of lost. They feel that feeling of now what? And I love that you spoke to that, because this podcast is also about talking about the messiness, the
mhm.
imperfectness. That's not even a word. Imperfect. What is the word I'm looking for? That word. It's not perfect. It doesn't look pretty. This in between space, and sometimes even when we think we've arrived, it doesn't look pretty. It's not all put together. So I love that you spoke to that. Any other emotions that came up while you were going through this pivot, even as you watched God opening doors and you noticed that this was a shift, this did not look anything like what you thought? What are some of the other emotions that maybe came up for you as you were navigating this?
I was frustrated. I felt like a failure
Mhm.
because I I'm the oldest child of my four siblings. There's more of us, but I'm the oldest child of the four siblings with my mom, and so I was the standard.
Ooh.
So it was, if Shamarah can't do it, she had a dream,
Mhm.
then what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
And so back then, I held everybody's emotions on me, and
Mm.
so it felt like I I didn't know what to do. I was lost.
Mhm.
I was devastated. I was angry. I had all
Mhm.
of the emotions that you can think of, because my whole life was about to look different,
Yeah.
because I wasn't going to be Dr. Shamarah Hutchins DO. It
Mhm.
was like, what am I going to do?
Mhm.
And especially living in Ohio, I can't do nothing with a master's in psychology. So so I really had to figure it out. And so
Mhm.
all those emotions, and I think frustrated and angry were the big ones,
Yeah.
because I didn't know what the plan was going to be. I was just
Mhm.
navigating and going and understanding that when I did have the job that I did, I enjoyed going, but I knew there was more. I couldn't be
Mhm.
direct care staff, but
Mhm.
my whole life. Now that
Yeah.
is something that people can do and people love it, and I love them. And so, but I knew that something inside me had a missing hole, and I needed to
Yeah.
fill that hole to be able to move forward.
Absolutely. There's something that you mentioned as well, and the reason I unpack the emotions is a lot of times when we're going through this messy pivot, we don't even though we're professionals, even though we're high capacity women, we don't have the vocabulary to say this is, or we feel guilty or shame for feeling these emotions because we're supposed to be the ones that have it figured out, and we don't. And so just being able to name those emotions and say, hey, I'm here, but I felt those things too. So if you're in that messy place, that pivot place, you're not alone in feeling those emotions. And there's something else you said about how your own story and your own journey, your own family experiences served that, what you ultimately developed, the solutions you started to look for, because you were looking for solutions for yourself and your family. That's how I came into psychology. That was definitely not my my parents' idea of what my journey would be like. But I went into psychology because I wanted to, Lord, give me some insight into my own family because I need some answers. um, and and back in that day, psychology wasn't even like a thing. It was, everyone thought it was this woo woo kind of thing with all the hypnosis and craziness. Anyway, going back to your story and how even with the substance related stuff and making sure that you wanted to be able to, if not, you couldn't do it for your family, that you wanted to make sure that no one has to go through the things that you went through. That's huge. And I highlight that to say how God uses our own experiences, our pain, and transforms that into something good. We don't, when we're going through it, we don't think it can be anything, nothing good can come out of this, but you took your pain and you transformed it into solutions. And by the way, I love your grandmother and your grandmother's stories.
Gotcha. At this point, it's memory, so it can come back when time needs to.
hmm Listen, all right, so let's talk about expectations, about process. Whew, you talked about this. You talked about there was a season of wrestling anger and questioning God, moments when those doors closed. As you've navigated through this process, what were your expectations about how this process should go? And how did God redirect, and how redirect your expectations, but also now in this season, post this journey, how do you approach expectations now versus then?
Ooh, that's a great question. So expectations back then was very limited, right?
Mm,
Because one, I expected my parents to be parents. They failed.
mm,
I expected that if I get good grades, I'll do anything and can get anywhere. That wasn't always the case.
mhm,
But as I continue to navigate those feelings and those emotions that I were feeling because of the foundation, if my parents didn't do the expectations, then nobody else can tell me anything. Like
mhm,
whatever you tell me is going in one ear and out the other because I don't trust you. And so those aspects started to change of expectations when I started to navigate the person that I am. If
mhm.
I expect something for myself, I used to expect the same from others.
Yeah.
And I knew that wasn't true after a while because I can't expect myself from someone else because I hold
Mhm,
myself with integrity and somebody might not hold themselves with integrity.
mhm,
And that used to be very hard for me because I lived on my values and integrity is my number one value. Integrity and family.
mhm,
And so when it came to that and you didn't do it, I just exit you out. Like literally,
mhm,
you gone. Like I don't want to talk to you. We have been best friends one day and the next day I don't know who you are. And
mm,
so as I started to grow as a person, I had to realize my expectations are mine, but I can't expect that from someone else. And God showed me that in a way of even navigating the pivot. I expected to be a doctor because I worked hard to be a
mhm,
doctor, but not knowing and being, broad and transparent, there are many different other doctors in the world that can give you the
mhm.
same results that
Yeah.
you've been going for. And he told me, your expectation is this, but you have to be open and willing to pivot to know that your expectation
Yeah.
can still be in that position, but it
Mhm,
just looks different and get the same outcome. Because my expectation was to be a doctor, to have a family, to take care of my family, my whole family, not just my immediate family, and to be able to break a generational curse of
mhm.
my kids not starting where I started from.
Yeah.
And so when I lost or that door closed, my expectations went out the door because I'm like, how am I supposed to do this?
Mm,
But when I realized that, if I'm open and I'm honest and I'm willing to learn and I'm willing to grow and I'm willing to change who I am, because there's some things that I need to work on for myself, then I can still get those expectations. And it looks a little bit differently because God says, you really taking care of everybody? No, that ain't right. Let me
No.
get you together before you get to that part,
Yeah.
because if you take care of everybody, then you're going to fail, and you're going to,
Mhm.
still have that, fear of failure, angry,
Mhm.
upset, when reality is I want you to be able to pour into people, be able to get what you need, and still have those expectations, but understand that you don't have to take care of everybody.
That's a huge one. There's a couple of things you just mentioned. The willingness to be open and allowing God to expand your perspective. Early on, you talked about tunnel vision, and that when you got your mind set on something, that's it. So allowing God to tear down that tunnel and expand your vision and your capacity to see beyond what was in your framework, the openness to that. And then the second part, and it leans into the next question, the weight of expectation from others and recognizing what is your unique assignment. Like even with family, what is God saying? This is what Shamarah needs to carry, and this is, nope, that's not you. You got to let that go. And even if that means they fall and they fail, they got to learn how to move on their own in that area. So how do you distinguish between what's your assignment, or let me rephrase that, what is your God-given assignment, not the one put on you by other people, not the one put on you by your own expectations, but what is your God-given assignment versus all the stuff? Because you could do all the stuff,
Mhm.
but how did you define, like, this is for me, this one's not for me, not mine to carry?
So I really started to listen.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we don't listen. We hear, but we don't listen. And so I used to always just hear. I used to always hear what people said, but I never listened to what people said most of the time.
Mm.
And so, especially God too, I used to hear what he said, but I never listened.
uh,
And
what's the
so
difference?
it's the difference. Okay, so I hear you say that, I need to be more obedient to spending time with you. I hear you. Now, am I going to do it? That's a different thing. But when I listened, I said, you know what? I'm going to be intentional in making time to be able for him to pour into me, and then
Mm-hmm.
I can pour into myself so that I
Mm-hmm.
can pour into others.
So there's an
And
action
so,
and follow through.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so, listen, psychology in it all through. And so, when I started to listen, I started to hear and feel, because listening is more than just, hearing and
Mm-hmm.
listening. It's about the emotions that you feel too. I started to listen to the reaction people had when I started to actually speak with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how I knew that was my avenue, when I started to actually feel the results of what someone was saying.
Mm-hmm.
And so an example is, especially with family, I know I'm the therapist in the family. It just is what it is. But in a sense of not being their therapist all the way through, but letting them understand and acknowledging what they're seeing, feeling, and hearing, so that they can see it and then move them to another therapist.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how I know that in my family, this is how I'm going to break that generational curse,
Yeah.
because it's a lot of a trauma that, I worked through, but my siblings haven't worked through. So they
Mm-hmm.
still have some of that negative maladaptive behaviors that they're doing. But when they see me put up those boundaries, they know it's real. And then they'll leave and come back and they'll think about it. But then I know that I'm making a change.
Mm-hmm.
And so I listen to people who are in my circle. I hear what you're saying. I'm listening to the words that's coming out of your mouth. And now that's why I'm the mindologist. Now we're going to work through it to see what's the necessary changes that you potentially need to make if you're willing to make
Mm-hmm.
them. And
Yeah.
so a lot of the times I sit, and I think it's a part of, they always say your zodiac sign is important, But as a Scorpio, it's all about listening and hearing, right? And so I take that to another level because I can feel what you're telling me because I'm listening.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Man, so let's talk about two other things on that note: comparison and competition. Coming from a sports background and even playing sports, competitive sports, going into this field, first in medicine and then God redirecting you to psychology. When you look at your journey and then you see other people and their journey, how do you fight against the comparison? And not, and let me not even say right now, because right now we might say you've arrived per se. But back then, as you were navigating this journey, this pivot, this redirection, and looking at others, what they were doing, what was going on for them while God was pivoting you, how did you deal with the competitiveness and the comparison, those two things?
That's a good one. That's a big one because in sports, um, I was good in sports, but I was always overlooked.
Mm,
So I was always in a sense of comparing myself to someone else and not realizing, but I knew I was good. I knew I was going somewhere.
mhm,
But back then, there were so many great girls too. And so I was quiet. I really didn't talk, but I also had anger because of my home situation. Not so much anger with, my teammates. I just didn't know how to funnel my anger. And so
mm.
I try to use sports to do that, but sometimes it was like a whole blah on the court sometimes when I
Mm,
got angry. And so back then with comparison and competition, I I just took it a day at a time because I was always comparing myself to somebody else.
mhm,
If they're doing it, why can't I do it? I must suck. All those negative
mm,
thoughts. But I still had these checkpoints to tell me that I was good, that I
mhm,
was doing it, that I don't need to compare myself to someone else. But I
mhm.
never listened to them.
Yeah.
And so as I got older, and this is what I do with, some of my athletes, or even in just anything that I do, I always say we have checkpoints in life.
Mhm,
And so the first one is our strengths. What are we really good at?
mhm,
Always being on our strengths. Yes, our weaknesses, we're going to make sure that we work on those, but our strengths are there for a reason and they're
yeah.
there to help and guide us.
Mhm,
And then we have success evidence. We have success evidence. What are the evidences that we have that shows us that we're doing what we're supposed to do? Something that somebody said to you,
mhm,
something that you've accomplished, a award that you have won. It can be simple of getting straight A's if you're in school. These are all your success evidence, and then really honing on, my affirmations. These are all the three things that help me stay centered when it comes to competition and comparison,
that's so
because
good.
there's going to always be another level. I want somebody to be able to look up to. I want somebody that I can say, I'm comparing myself to, but I'm comparing myself to in a sense of I want to be there, not so much of
Mhm,
all these other aspects,
mhm.
because that allows me to say that there's another level. There's
Yeah,
another level to anything that we do. And
that's so
so,
good.
yeah.
I want to tap into that and bring that into the now season, because in a lot of women circles, we find ourselves really struggling to forge, and this wasn't in the script, so I apologize in advance. um, we find ourselves struggling to form those close relationships and those close friendships because it almost feels like women are competing against women, and comparing, that constant comparison and constant competition. And some of it also stems from that achiever mindset that you mentioned earlier, about I've got to do this for myself. I've got to make sure that I'm the top of the class. I've got to make sure that I succeed, because if I don't, no one else is going to do this for me. And because you've worked so hard to get to this place, you've fought so many battles to get to this place. How do you navigate through that same mindset now that you've made it, and allow people in and not allow competitiveness and comparison as a high capacity woman to steal your joy in this season and steal friendships and prevent you from connecting with people in a genuine, authentic way.
I'm so far into being comfortable with myself. And I tell people all the time, sometimes I think I miss stuff because one, I don't allow negativity around me.
Mhm.
If negativity is around me, then I can remove myself. I can control anything that I can do. I can't
Mhm.
control you. And so as I'm navigating, these high capacity rooms, being in a room with, if you're the smartest person in the room, you need to move the room. So being
Mhm.
in these rooms, I know there's going to be another level of thinking.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I always go into these rooms understanding that I can only control me.
Yeah.
And if I can only control me, then I will change what I need to change that I can control.
Mhm.
And so understanding that also, as a person who I am, I know that when I go into a room, I'm automatically a leader. Like I try to step back. I try. I be like, you know what? I'm just going, see what's going on. And then next thing you know, I'm like, wait, hold on. How did I get to this part? What is going on
Mhm.
here? But then that's where I know that I can be the person they can look up to see how is it supposed to be done. So maybe the atmosphere would change. If the atmosphere doesn't want to change, that means that's not a room for me. And I'm okay with that.
Mm. Mhm.
So it's just understanding that when we are in those rooms and many people say, there are mean girls. There are mean girls in the world. There's mean men in the world. There's mean everybody in the world. It don't matter what
Mhm.
sex or race you are. You
Yeah.
just mean. But if you know that you can only control yourself, you can control what rooms you want to be in. You can control what you want to get out of it. And sometimes you got to be in those rooms, get what you need and move on. And not just take all the rest of the stuff with you.
That part. That part. Recognizing the purpose. So how much of that is tied to your healing journey? Because that's key, right? Because a lot of people are still navigating these spaces, but they're not healed. And so they absorb all that. So, how much of your ability to move in this way is tied to the work that you did on yourself, your own healing journey?
100%. I can't even lie. I have grown so much because I was intentional of healing myself.
Mm-mm.
I was intentional in understanding that I'm the only person that I can control. I can't even control my kids. I can give them advice.
Yeah.
I can, show them the pathway, but they're going to make their own decision.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that I can't take that personal.
Mm-hmm.
I can't control my husband as much as I want to. He listens, but he's going to make his own decision. I can only control
Mm-hmm.
the outcome of what I need and make sure that I'm putting the boundaries up or the necessary avenues up so that I can get what I need or, how I need to navigate or move. And
Mm-hmm.
so 100% of my healing was due to going to therapy to do the trauma work. After the
Mm-hmm.
trauma work, I let the trauma work stay, but I understand the foundations of, some triggers will happen. But then I had to work on myself and understand that my mindset is the number one thing that determines where I will go.
Mm-hmm.
And I can only control my mindset. Nobody else can control it. The thoughts that I think, how I
Yeah.
feel, the way
Yeah.
I move, the way I move will bring the people I need. So I'm not always going to look for people. People really
Mm-hmm.
navigate to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that was a calling too. When people
Yeah.
come, God, what is my season with this person? Or is
That
it a
part.
short season, a long season, or forever season?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is, I want to make sure I make the best of it, but being open to that. So, yes, that's what it is.
Do you have your book on hand?
I
Books.
do. I do. I do. We get to navigate. I was going to sit over here, but, I didn't get a chance. But we have all these books. My teen journal is somewhere. It's in the other room, but we can navigate this.
Because I love that you tapped into um, the mindset component. She is called the mindologist, y'all. That is where she
Yes.
goes by. So, mindset matters. Tell us a little bit about what that book, and all of these will be available in the show notes, everyone. So, you can order the book, you can order the workbook. But tell us a little bit about that and how that came about.
So I told myself, so when I was around 18, my pastor, who was like my father, who stepped up, he always used to tell me I needed to write a book about my life. And I'm like, yeah,
Mhm,
no, nobody want to hear about my life. I'm not doing that. Like, no. And he just
mhm,
kept saying it, kept pouring into it, kept pouring into it. And I'm like, okay. So for my 35th birthday, I did the Herology of a Woman. This was
mm,
the first book, like the first book of the three sequels that's happening. And
mhm,
so this was about healing, how I
mhm,
navigated life, what I did to heal,
mhm.
how I became, where I'm at today of just the healing journey.
Yeah.
And so it gave people aspects of asking questions for themselves about what their healing looks like and what they need to focus on and how they need to
Mhm,
get there. And so after I healed, I'm like, okay, what's next? But then I realized after I healed, I worked on my mindset
mhm,
because I fulfilled that hole that needed to be fulfilled. And so
mhm,
as I fulfilled that hole, another level came.
mhm.
So more stuff start to happen. The more that you
Yeah.
grow, the more that other stuff open up. And
Mhm,
so that's where the mindset matters came because I started to navigate how my mind worked. And so that was taking on, the things that I thought, my
mhm,
environment, how to change negative thoughts, how to make
mhm.
sure that if I'm navigating, being an entrepreneur, well, going from a 9 to 5 to an entrepreneur, how my mindset needed to change.
Yeah.
All these aspects of how to navigate my mindset when I'm dealing with other people,
Mhm,
how to, exercises of the different things that I worked on and did, but understanding that my mindset is the ultimate goal in anything
mhm.
because my mindset changes over time
Yeah.
because our brain is a muscle. We know our brain is a muscle. We teach it what
Mhm,
it needs to be taught and then it learns and it continues to
mhm.
go. So if you're never able to make your mind grow, then you will never be able to really navigate what you need to do. And so that's
Absolutely.
where Mindset Matters came in the book, but it also has a journal, a workbook with it. And so as I was doing this, my daughters were seeing it and they were doing it too. And I said, why not make a teen version too? Because you all are
Mhm,
doing it and I'm hearing you say everything that we're doing and you're
mhm.
telling your friends and you're doing this just so
Yeah.
that I can get embedded into them. Entrepreneurship can look however you want it to look.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so, yeah, those were that. And then the last book would be Blueprint to Alignment. So we got your mindset together. Now you got your blueprint to get to your alignment of what you need to do.
Mhm. I love it. And y'all, I love how this is generational. That you talked about your desire from the inception of your journey was to break generational curses, and you are living, breathing testimony to that desire being fulfilled as you're seeing it in your kids, as you're passing on to your kids these skills that you've developed over these years, the healing that you've worked on through these years. I want to talk about one last aspect as we come towards the end of this. Let's talk about forgiveness and the role forgiveness plays in this healing journey. She took a sigh.
I did. All right, say that one more time. I had to.
That's okay. So we've talked about there's along this journey, things
Mhm.
happen, right? People, things, first of all, childhood, family stuff, all that stuff. And in your form as you filled it in, you talked about forgiveness. forgiving people who never apologize, forgiving yourself, forgiving God, and I want you to speak a little bit to that, because I think as we talk about healing, it's not a one time thing, right?
Mm-mm.
Forgiveness is not a one time thing. As you're in this journey, this this thing has to become part of your process too. So
Mm-hmm.
talk to us a little bit about the role of forgiveness in your journey then and now, as you navigate being the woman that you are today.
So the one thing that you said, that is forgiveness, is it's like it's like rolling.
Mhm.
It never stops. Just because you and I know my grandmother always said, you can forgive, but you can't forget. People show you who they really are, and you want to believe them when they show you, but people change too. And
Mhm.
so that's the one key, that things that we do not understand. People change over time if they want to change. And so
Mhm.
if you truly forgave someone, right, you're willing to have that open conversation of what's next.
Yeah.
If you're going to be in my life or whatever it is, you might not be,
Mhm. Mhm.
but understanding that, younger, my forgiveness looked like, I said it, but did I really mean it? That's what it looked like younger. I
Yeah.
said it, yeah, I forgive you, but yet
It
you
was.
bring something up. Yeah, you bring something up,
Mhm.
and I'm like, well, you did this and da da da. Well, I thought you
Mhm.
forgave me. I did. So why are you bringing this back up?
Mhm.
But now in my forgiveness, I forgive. And you said that people give you checkpoints. I forgive you, and I'm allowing you this particular step, but you have to show me or prove to me that you're
Mhm.
willing to take those steps. And if you're not,
Yeah.
it's okay. I'm not going to hold it against you. It's
Mhm.
just maybe we're not connected. And I'm
Yeah.
okay with that. And so,
Yeah.
what healing looks like is, I forgive you, or, forgiving looks like I forgive you, but I also know who I am and my boundaries as well. And so,
Mhm.
in that forgiving, right, I have to be, in forgiving, you still are vulnerable. You still got to
Mhm.
understand that you're going to have vulnerability,
Yeah.
and understanding that in every vulnerability is not an attack on you. Again, I can only control myself.
Yeah.
I can control what you do.
Yeah.
And so if I forgave you and let you back into my space, that's because I wanted to make sure that I was okay with it. And
Mhm.
then you chose to stay, or you chose to leave.
Mhm.
And in that vulnerability, I might get a little bit hurt, because you are going to have some emotions with it. But at the end of the day, you have to tell yourself, I'm okay, because
Mhm.
I made these decisions. They didn't make these decisions for me. I made these decisions for me.
Yeah. I love that ownership, owning just the decisions and the responsibility. That's empowering for the woman that is still navigating wounds. And I'm hearing you say, I choose, in my own interpretation, I'm choosing healing every day. I'm choosing wellness, wholeness, a positive mindset every day, because I can't teach positive mindset if I don't have it too, right? As you're saying that, where have you seen where unhealed wounds, not really pursuing healing, but staying and dwelling in the woundedness and the pain? How have you seen that manifest itself in leadership, the clients you serve, the spaces that you navigate, unresolved wounds and their impact on leadership, decision making, purpose, and the people in your circle? And maybe even you at some seasons when you hadn't learned that lesson yet.
So we always talk about transference and countertransference.
Hmm.
And when someone is unhealed, or, still navigating, their feelings and what happened to them before, and, the different avenues, especially, I always say, in the workplace. There's one conference I went to, and the whole conference was all about how Black women are not seen in leadership, and there's a lot of job hurt. And so this is something that's around, that happens. And for me, that's never been my experience. And I think it's because I navigated, understood what I needed to do, and I continue to push through. So many people push two. They push to find adversity and they stop, but I push through
Mhm.
because I'm going to
Mm.
continue to go until I get what I need or where I need to be. And so many people stop at that two and don't
Mhm.
realize it because it's a mindset thing. So
Yeah.
you stop at that two, you're going to always feel like there's a block.
Come on.
And so if you feel like there's a block, that means you need to push through that door.
Mhm.
And it's not always pushing through that door in, a mean and negative way. It's pushing through that door to say, how can I navigate to get to where I need to be?
Yeah.
Because everyone has adversity. Some people might have more than others. I get it. Culture, anything, I get it.
Mhm.
People are just not aware.
Mhm.
But at the same time, you have to understand yourself too. What have
Yeah.
I done for myself to get to where I need to be? And so,
Absolutely.
in many times in those rooms, it's a lot of countertransference. A lot of countertransference is happening, and people are not realizing that it's happening. And so you
Mm.
hear something from someone, and then you realize that it's triggering me, and now you're doing that same emotion on somebody else.
And so we're all together stuck in this place of
Yep.
dysfunction, in this place of woe is me. What I
Mm-hmm.
heard when you were speaking to is we have to shift from the victim mindset, and we have to intentionally, our desire for healing, our desire for wholeness, our desire to be the generational curse breakers, our desire to succeed and to be that example and that standard has to be stronger than whatever the obstacle, whatever the barrier is, whatever the hurt is, whatever the pain is. We have to, I love that, push through and not just let the two keep
Mm-hmm.
us. And what, again, going back to the mindset, not dwelling. What am I going to focus on? What am I going to think on? And I want you to speak to that part too, if you will. Like, how can you master your mind while still, because sometimes we feel like if we let go of it, we're
Mm-hmm.
betraying our community, we're betraying ourselves, we're getting away with it, all those things. So, and I've navigated this space of people feeling entitled to sit in that because they don't feel like they can let it go. So, how do you navigate mastering your mindset while also honoring the grief, the disappointment, the hurt, like not burying it or shoving it under the carpet, ignoring it? How do you still master that while still honoring that, but not choosing to dwell there?
So, when it comes to that, you have to really heal from the grief, the trauma, or other aspects like that. And what does healing look like? To say, I worked through whatever the situation was, understanding that it was not me. And so as grief comes up, so grief comes, trauma comes, but you learn techniques to be able to navigate through it. If it happens again, I've already have the tools to work through it. And so I have to continually use those tools because now I need to work on the second part, which is my mindset.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not negating it, like I'm not letting it go because I still have to use those tools in order to move to my mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And so as I move into my mindset, it's still, I'm using my strengths, my success evidence, and my affirmations
Mm-hmm.
because those things are going to help me continue to work through and gain better positioning for my mindset so that I can work on bigger things. To
Mm-hmm.
understand that it's not the person. I might be in a room full of men
Mm-hmm.
and they looking at me like, why you in here? I'm in here because I'm supposed to be in here. I,
Yes.
I was invited in here. And so therefore you're going to see while I'm invited in here and you're not going to downgrade who I am because I have my
Mm-hmm.
strengths, I have my success evidence, and I know who I am. I have my affirmations.
Mm-hmm.
And so these are the things that we navigate and work through, but understanding that whatever I had from previously, from trauma, from grief, from everything else, those aspects continue to work through it and I continue to do those skills that I need. But as I continue to build on my mindset, I have to focus on those three aspects because it's going to continue to build because I'm still going
Mm-hmm.
to continue to add more strengths. I'm
Mm-hmm.
still going to continue to add more success evidence, and I'm going to continue to add more affirmations. So I'm only going to get better and better.
Mm-hmm. So what I'm hearing is your language has got to change too. The
Mm-hmm.
conversations you engage is has got to change. So the rooms that you talked about, that negativity, why? That's so important. Why can't you sit in a room full of women talking about how they've been done wrong, or talking about their trauma, talking about, and from still a place of pain? That's key, because there's women who will talk about it, but they will talk from a place of victory. They'll be talking from that place of the success evidence, from the place of, what was the other one, strengths, from the place
Mm-hmm.
of affirmation. But then there's those who are still in the pain.
And so we have to understand, when we think about that, understanding those two rooms, like you said, there's a room that they're talking from pain, but there's a room they're talking from elevation,
Mm,
right?
I like that. Mm-hmm.
And so if I'm in a room for talking like from pain, I'm not going to be in a position to feel like I'm better than anybody. That's not it. But I will give you a little bit of guidance of saying, I see that that's painful. And
Mm-hmm.
so what tools have you've done to be able to get out of that pain? And so I'm not just going to absolutely, if we're meeting, having a luncheon, I'm a respectful person. I'll stay as long as I can, but in my mind, I'm training my mind to be like, Shamarah, you know, this, and this, or
Mm-hmm.
you're here for a reason, get your reason, and then they'll understand that you won't be back in this room.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you have not focused, or if you have not acknowledged, remember, acknowledgement is the first thing of understanding and moving on. If you
Mm-hmm.
have not acknowledged that I have pain that I need to work through, then we're not on the same level, and that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And I think many women are afraid to say that
Mm-hmm.
we're not on the same level, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we were, we can speak the same language, that
Mm-hmm.
elevation room. I'd
Mm-hmm.
rather be in the elevation room because they know, they have learned and they've worked through how to turn their pain into progress or progression.
Yes. And those are up. I love the word elevated because it pulls you up. But
Mhm.
if you're in these other rooms where the conversation, and we know the misconception around, trauma bonding and trauma conversations, but those rooms, and it doesn't even have to be a professional room, it can be a personal room, a phone conversation, a text message conversation. It pulls you down and it keeps you locked in to pain and trauma. And you can't, it's like these heavy weights upon you. And I think in pictures a lot, and so as you were speaking, I was also thinking about an actual wound, right? And if you don't let it heal and you don't clean it out and then you heal it, let it heal and let it be, you don't go back and you keep reopening the wound. If you keep doing that, it turns septic,
Mhm.
and then it poisons everything and it turns into gangrene and all that yuckiness. That's how it is when you don't even allow your emotional and your relational wounds to heal, and you keep reopening it, you keep revisiting it, and you keep messing with it. You're never going to progress beyond that point. This was so good. Y'all, a lot of what we talked about today is just like, we don't have to pretend. There's nothing about this
Mhm.
conversation that is pretends. Difficult emotions, they exist, but what is the loudest voice? I love what Dr. Shamar said, is like that, the strengths, the positive stuff, your evidence of success. Like, what are you putting in the front of your vision, your perspective? What's up here? That's so key to determining where your life shifts. So as we wrap up today, I know Dr. Shamar has a place to get to today as we're recording this. If you could say something to two people, one to the young version of yourself back in the day when you started this journey, what is some advice that you would have given to the younger version of yourself now that you're looking back, 20 hindsight 2020, right? And then the second one, to any woman listening to this who is questioning her pivot, questioning her journey and where she is right now, and it not looking like anything she envisioned this journey would look like, what would you say to her? So those two women.
Okay. The letter to my younger self, I actually did this exercise. It was a long letter, and I actually it was a long letter, but I actually let my daughters read it,
Mm-hmm.
because they are the younger versions of me. And
Mm,
so I just the one thing that stood out to me, was whatever happened yesterday can change today,
mm,
because yesterday is gone, but today I can make a different decision. I can determine what I want to do today.
mm-hmm.
So, with the letter to myself, understanding that your pathway can look way different than what it started off as, and just continue
Mm-hmm.
to stay focused and understanding that, you know, every lesson is a navigation to a world that you can open up if you just believe,
Yeah.
work hard, and listen, not just hear.
Mm-hmm. Mm, mm-hmm.
And so that's what I would tell my younger self. And just continue to work on those affirmations. Affirmations work. When the people don't realize it, they work.
Mm-hmm.
To that woman who is in the middle of understanding their pivot, is in the middle of understanding their unknown, is in the middle of just understanding life, because as a woman, we change over and over again. Our life looks different. If we have kids,
Mm-hmm.
it totally looks different, because then we start to try to refine ourselves. If we go from working a 9 to 5 to entrepreneurship, that's totally different as a woman as well. Or if we're navigating, that leadership, I want to be the CEO of a big time organization, understanding that you matter. You are where you need to be, and just believing, again, it's the same thing, just believing in yourself. Understanding that you're going to have some days that you just don't know, and sit with those
Mm-hmm.
emotions, acknowledge those emotions, and then move to through those emotions. Don't move to them. You got to move through them.
Mm-hmm.
And as you're navigating, moving through them, finding those tools that help you navigate that, because it's going to help you navigate something else.
Yeah.
So when we start to work through things, we can't just leave it in the moment. We got to take those tools with us, because
Yes.
it's going to help us navigate something else that we truly, truly need to navigate. And you
Mm-hmm.
work through it already. So just have that belief in yourself. That's the first thing, is
Mm-hmm.
believing in yourself, because others believe in you and God believes in you. You just got to believe in
Mm-hmm.
yourself.
Amen. Thank you so much, Dr. Shamarah, for today, for sharing your story, for showing us that purpose really is a straight line, and that the greatest evidence of God's faithfulness is not everything that happened according to our plan, but
Mhm.
it's the faithfulness of God while He's rewriting our story. For every woman that is listening to this episode today, I pray that something that was said today blessed your heart, brought some level of healing, some level of clarity and understanding, some level of freedom and unleashing, that you recognize that maybe that closed door wasn't rejection, maybe it was just redirection by God into His perfect will for your life. Even if it doesn't look like what you thought it would, even if it isn't packaged the way you thought it would be packaged, recognizing that every delay in your journey wasn't punishment from God, but it was preparation for this next level. And maybe what felt like feeling lost, like Dr. Shamarah said, those moments of feeling lost along the way is actually God leading you towards the assignment. He wanted you to dig a little deeper. He wanted you to open up and be open to His plan for your life, His assignment, the way it was originally intended. And different does not always mean lesser. It means deeper, more
Mhm.
aligned, more surrendered. She started off talking about the surrender. She had to come to that place where she said, God, not my will, but your will, right? And allowing God to also redefine your identity, because when it's been attached to, you're going to be this for so long, um, and God redirecting it to something else, you have to be willing to surrender and allow God to shift your identity. See, God's not only interested in where He's taking you, but He's also interested in the person that you're becoming along the way. Thank you all so much. Share this episode with somebody. Comment, let us know what about Dr. Shamarah's story really resonated with you, and you will find all the links to her books, all her services. Oh, before I forget, I was about to forget. Tell us a little bit about some of the events coming up, real quick. And I'll
Absolutely.
put the links in the show notes so that people can make sure that they tap into that.
All right, three main events. One is our mother and son dance. Actually, is a new year, so we do a mother and us, and so you can bring mom, son, and daughter. It's a Western theme. That will be September 11th.
Mm-hmm.
From 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Then we have our Mental Health Awareness Summit, a check-in. So the check-in and mental health summit that will be on Mental Health World Day on October 10th at the Cleveland Heights Metro Health. We will have Lamont Ruckers there. So the man from Why Did I Get Married? So that's exciting. And then we'll have Courtney B. She was on Wild 'N Out. She's going to be the host. So it's an absolutely free event for the community. So come out. And then our last one is our mother and daughter retreat. And so
Mm-hmm.
this is for a mother and daughter between the ages of 11 and 18. Me and my daughters are going to have the conference on the weekend of October 23rd. It will be in Geneva on the Lake, and you're able to, spend some quality time with you and your daughter, and just so you all can just have a bonding moment and also work on our mindset as well.
Awesome. Y'all, the links are in the show notes. Make sure you connect. Make sure you sign up. Her events are amazing. So just connect. And so, yep, we're done with this episode for today, y'all. Make sure that you continue pursuing your healing, continue aligning with God, continue working on that mindset, and trust God's process. Even though it may look messy right now, know that He's continuing to shape you into the woman you were meant to be. God bless you, y'all, and see you in the next episode. Take care.
All right. Bye.